People are saying that at Turning Point, you beat me.
Desmond Wolfe, you knew what my weakness was, and you went after it. 2 weeks later, and I'm right back where I belong, in my wrestling ring.
You put me in a legal submission maneuver, and yes, I tapped out, but you didn't beat me. Beating somebody is punishing them mentally and physically.
It looks to me like Desmond Wolfe has a plan to eliminate Kurt Angle at Final Resolution. Can he beat Angle, both mentally and physically, in the 6 sides of steel?
I can smell the blood already.
I will terminate your wrestling career.
Let's just say I'm hungry like a wolf.
Welcome to Last Match Standing, the podcast where we review, relive, and rank the greatest wrestling matches of all time. As always, I'm Spenser.
I miss Don West.
And I'm going to hit that moonsault one of these days.
And today, it's December 20th, 2009. We're at Final Resolution from the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. It's the 3 Stages of Pain match. Kurt Angle versus Desmond Wolfe.
Man, can you believe you got matches like this if you just happen to be at Universal Studios and it's just like, oh, there's this little trifold sign that says wrestling this way. Okay, let me go check this out. And I sit down. Fucking Desmond Wolfe versus Kurt Angle in a cage. What?
Well, you could have gone to the Amway Arena and watched a shit episode of SmackDown.
Listen, episode 77. For us guys, we just are coming off of talking about Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, Loser Leaves Town,
Rob Bartlett,
an incredible episode. We had the great pleasure of having Dale Springs, the golf father of professional wrestling, join us. If you have not listened to that episode, please do so, and then also give Dale Springs a follow on his socials, Instagram, Twitter, the whole thing.
Did you know he always comes under par?
Always under par. Really, really good stuff. And, you know, this match specifically, Kurt Angle, Desmond Wolfe, was featured on a poll very, very recently, along with our Joshi tag that we did a couple episodes ago for episode 75. And these matches were so close on that poll that we just didn't feel right about not covering Angle and Wolfe because it was so close on the poll. So here we are.
And I'm so glad we did not look past this match.
I know.
Holy shit.
I know. This thing has everything that you could be looking for as a wrestling fan. 2009, infamously not like the best year we've ever seen in professional wrestling, but
TNA does a pretty good job this year.
TNA does a good job, and this match is an absolute banger. These two guys faced off at Turning Point prior to this, and so this is a follow-up to that match. Wolfe fairly new on the scene here in TNA. Obviously, Kurt Angle has made his name and presence felt for a couple of years now in TNA. So there's plenty to get to. We'll talk about the build. We'll talk about all those things. But make sure you're following us along here as we wrap up Season 4. We've got just 3 episodes left after this one, which is insane as we venture here on episode 77. Make sure you're following us along on Twitter and Facebook, which you can do at Last Match Cast. You can also do that on Instagram, Last Match Standing for sure. You can follow us on YouTube at Last Match Standing, and you can email us any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, match suggestions. All of that can go to lastmatchstanding@gmail.com. It is just a matter of moments before we start a TikTok of just Paul impressions. I feel like that's a thing.
Yeah, it's got to be a thing.
That's a thing. That's where all the cool kids are at. On the old tic-tac.
We didn't do an impression last episode. Maybe we should start off this episode with a nice little Paul impression. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
I actually had one planned for the match.
Well, maybe should we hold off?
Or should we wait?
Yes,
you got to wait for it.
Okay, that's how you reel them in right there. We're coming off of a really, really fun episode, and this is another example of just really high-quality wrestling.
It is absolutely a wrestling masterpiece, and like you said, it covers the gamut, right?
Yeah,
it's a this match is in 3 acts. One of them, wrestling classic as far as like technical holds. The next one, wrestling classic as far as submission wrestling and counter wrestling. And then all bets are off. It's a cage match, and it is brutal. It is high energy, high octane. This is Impact Wrestling at its best.
Oh yeah,
That's a great
what
point.
I really like about the match, and this was took me I think 3 separate attempts to actually watch the whole thing. So when I first clicked on it, there was when I clicked on a link on YouTube, it was just the first fall with no with no.
You can find it on Dailymotion.
Yes.
If you're watching along with us, you can find it on Dailymotion, the full 35-minute segment from the pay-per-view, which was Final Resolution.
Yeah,
or if you have Impact Plus, watch that whole show.
Yeah.
Because
it's pretty
Final
good.
Resolution is always
It's
a
good.
good show.
So
Actually, we've had a Final Resolution match
have.
on our list
Gail Kim Awesome
before.
Kong.
Gail Kim Awesome Kong was at the previous year's December pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm. So the version I watched was just the first fall. It's about, I think, just under 10 minutes. No context. No pre-match package. No Don West. No Mike Tenay and Taz giving us the rundown. No entrances. Just you click on it, bell rings, they're
Right.
wrestling in a cage, and I'm confused because they don't use the cage. The match ends, and I'm like, you call that a cage match? It wasn't until I say, "Ooh, part 2." Click. Oh, this is a 2 out of 3 falls. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
And then I couldn't find fall 3. So I was like, what the fuck? So then I went to Dailymotion. I'm like, oh, here it is in 35 minutes. But unfortunately, it was only in like 480. So it looked like shit on my phone being cast onto a screen. I suffered through it. And I'm glad I did because I love this match.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah. So we'll get to the gimmick. We'll get to the stipulation of the match here in just a little bit. On commentary, Taz and Mike Tenay, as Paul just mentioned. The referee, I guarantee you this time, is Earl Hebner.
You sure?
Oh, it is.
You sure about that?
Yeah, I'm willing to bet on
Wait,
it.
so that's 2 Hebners in a row.
Double
for-
Hebner.
Double Hebner.
Double Hebner.
Maybe the last one was Dave.
But to balance it out, maybe so. Now, I would also like to mention that, Landon, you said that this is the second Final Resolution match that we've had on our list. This is a match that both wrestlers have already been featured on our list.
True.
Yep.
Desmond Wolfe, this is his second appearance, the first of which, if you recall, was as Nigel McGuinness against Bryan Danielson
With his mohawk.
in Ring of Honor. He looks very different here.
Yes. The buzz cut is a very different look. I didn't recognize him the first time I saw this match.
Right. And this is Kurt Angle's, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would make
Yikes.
his 5th appearance.
Is that the highest number from any
on our
single
list?
wrestler?
5 time.
I don't know. I think
It's got to be
Shawn?
pretty close. Sean's up there.
Ric Flair is up there.
Flair's up there. Bret Hart's been on here a couple of times as well. Just a quick run through here shows Shawn Michaels at. Is he in the Rumble?
Yes.
So that would be 6 for the Heartbreak Kid. So but Kurt Angle right behind him,
Right.
and I mean right behind him.
And we're not done with Kurt Angle either.
Yeah. So interesting.
Oh,
Interesting
I seem
stuff.
to remember there's a Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels match somewhere along the line.
Yeah,
Huh.
well, I don't know if we ever covered that one, though. It's not very good. It might be like the worst WrestleMania match of all time.
I really like their 30-minute Iron Man match.
I do too.
After that, that's really, really good. But that's neither here nor there. So how about that? A 5th time for Kurt Angle on the list. It's just hard to ignore. Part of me is like, oh, are we fanboying? But I mean, yes. But also,
The contributions that he made to the sport are undeniable.
And it's the word sport is hugely important there. One, because of the authenticity of Kurt Angle as a professional wrestler, but also the amateur sport of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Amateur wrestling, I guess.
Yeah, we get Kurt's legit Olympic gold medalist. That's almost
Right.
an Olympic gold athlete.
That's also true.
It's also true.
But one thing we have to talk about is Nigel McGuinness came from the Ring of Honor system where they treated wrestling like an Olympic sport where they wrestled. They didn't do gimmick. I mean, they did, but we watched him in a match with Bryan Danielson where the whole point of the match is you have to actually wrestle. There's
Well, it was
limited
the
rope
pure
breaks.
It was
title.
the pure
Yeah.
wrestling championship and a unification match
Yeah, like
with the
you
ROH
couldn't
World title. Yeah.
jump off the top rope. You only had what 3 rope breaks, and that was it.
That was their match from ROH Unified 2006,
Yeah.
which currently sits as number 43 on our list.
And I think Kurt Angle is 43 in this match. The numbers don't lie. I actually have no idea how old Kurt Angle is here. Do not tweet at me. This is not a
Well,
question.
I think he was in his mid to late 30s, maybe at this point, I believe.
in 2009.
So Kurt Angle.
Hold on, I'm so sorry.
Hold, please.
He had just turned 41.
Oh, that was close.
Really?
I'm pretty good. Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
That's impressive because he
Yeah.
looked spot on
Yeah, he looks great.
in this match.
Yeah, he looks great.
Kurt didn't lose it until 2016. That's when I was like, all right, buddy, please stop.
I don't think he lost it in 2016, to be honest with you. I think he was not allowed to be the guy he wanted to be at that time.
Well,
in his career.
I really think his body was just catching up with him.
I don't know. Only Kurt knows.
That's true.
But like I said, we're all fairly familiar with Kurt Angle's career. Legendary WWE run, winning the World Heavyweight Championship in 2006 before exiting the company due to health concerns. See, the thing was, he was wrestling too many shows a year for that point in his life, and he was usually hurt when he was wrestling those shows.
Yes.
So that, of course, opened the door for his second coming in professional wrestling in Total Nonstop Action, TNA. He spent the next 3 years sort of carving out a spot for himself on that roster, having incredible matches with the likes of Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Sting,
Scott Steiner.
before standing face to face across the ring from a man by the name of Desmond Wolfe.
Desmond Wolfe.
When we last left Nigel McGuinness, he was getting his head smashed in on a steel post, courtesy of Brian Danielson,
Yeah, that spot's hard to watch in hindsight.
on episode 53 of our show. He, of course, lost that match against Danielson after a barrage of elbows, and he just laid battered and defeated in the middle of the ring.
And a bloody mess.
McGuinness was gutted by this loss, as the Pure Championship, which he held for a record-setting 350 days, was now unified with the ROH World Championship. After the match, Danielson offered McGuinness one more shot at the unified ROH World Championship, and on the 25th of August, the two wrestled in a 2 out of 3 falls match to a 60-minute time limit, and as a result, McGuinness could no longer challenge for the ROH Championship as long as Danielson was the champion. After the match, Danielson recognized McGuinness's efforts and gave him the now retired Pure Championship as a trophy. After this brutal series of matches between those two, it would take McGuinness 14 months to fight his way back to the ROH Championship against tag team partner Takeshi Morishima. A fighting champion, McGuinness would battle through some really tough injuries, including a head injury suffered in a title defense against Austin Aries. In this match, McGuinness hit his head on a metal guardrail. The impact gave him a concussion, broke his nose, opened his eyebrow, and required 14 stitches. Throughout 2008, McGuinness successfully defended the ROH title against the likes of Chris Hero, Tyler Black, Austin Aries, Kevin Steen, Claudio Castagnoli, Go Shiozaki, Jerry Lynn, Roderick Strong, El Generico, and Bryan Danielson.
A bunch of nobodies.
There's only one name you mentioned that I don't know.
In March 2009, McGuinness sustained an arm injury competing in a tag team match. Despite this injury, reportedly requiring surgery, he still wrestled at the 7th anniversary show the very next night and defeated Kenta to retain his championship. This is one tough wrestling machine. Finally, on April 3rd, 2009, at Supercard of Honor 4, McGuinness loses the ROH World Championship to Jerry Lynn at his 39th championship defense.
Good Lord.
This ended his reign as ROH World Champion at 545 days.
He's so close to 365.
There is only one man to hold the ROH World Championship longer Do you know who that man is? Any guesses?
Longer than 540 days?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Tell me.
Guesses?
Tell me.
ROH champion to hold it longer than that?
I want to know.
Only one guy.
Tell me.
The only, I mean, God, I have no idea. I would be really pushing my limits here.
Stop
There's
flexing and tell us.
Just a guess. I'm just curious.
I'm,
what you said.
in my mind it says Punk or Joe. I don't know if they would have been champion for that long.
Okay. No guesses, Paul?
Bob Dole.
Bob Dole. It was actually Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
And his feud with Punk took place during his 645-day championship reign.
It's almost 2 years.
After taking some time off to heal up, McGuinness would come back to wrestle Bryan Danielson in both men's final Ring of Honor match. In September 2009, it was announced that McGuinness was WWE bound. But after a failed physical exam that showed that his arm was still injured, he ends up signing with TNA instead. See, during his time in ROH, McGuinness would make occasional appearances in TNA, competing in the X Division. However, after his impressive ROH championship run, TNA brought him in and shoots him straight to the top.
Yep.
On October 22nd, he debuts as Desmond Wolfe and goes right to work attacking Kurt Angle.
Oh, yeah. He hits him with 2 or 3 lariats and then does the Tower of London. And the show goes off the air with Kurt oh, my God, Kurt may have re-injured his neck.
And that's the thing. He went straight for Kurt Angle's neck.
Yep.
It's well documented that is Kurt Angle's weakness. And so immediately he shows himself as the smart, calculated, Wolf kind of character.
Just a question here, and I don't know if we know the answer to this, but I think it's interesting. A failed physical for WWE.
Right.
How does that not complicate the TNA situation?
That's a great question. I think
Because he was never under contract, I guess?
Well, I think he had a rapport with TNA, right?
Yeah, because he had done appearances
He had
for
been there. He'd been doing appearances for them. And WWE's health policy is extremely strict, and it was just more strict than what TNA was doing.
Yeah, interesting.
I think, I don't know. Total speculation.
Right.
I would guess that he never had the surgery.
Yeah.
And the doctor said, look, you need to have this surgery. And the TNA doctor said, well, we're giving you a clean bill of health.
Right.
Just total speculation
I'm
on
sure
my
he
part.
probably did have the surgery, but TNA's probably we'll pay for it.
So the very next week, after attacking Kurt Angle, he gets a win over Angle in a street fight in his TNA debut match due to referee stoppage.
Yeah, he does a lariat, a lariat. Then he does one to the back of Kurt's head, and then I think he does another one with either I think he does a chair guillotine. He just assaults Kurt's neck.
Absolutely. And actually he's able to win a match against Angle on the November 12th episode with a DDT, which is obviously a neck targeted move.
It's weird because he got the lariat over, he got the DDT over as career-ending moves, and I'm at one point they were.
Yeah.
They
and now they are again
that, yeah.
with someone as cold and calculated as Desmond Wolfe. At Turning Point, Wolfe would finally suffer defeat via submission in his TNA pay-per-view debut. After losing his match to Angle at Turning Point, Wolfe would appear on Impact and admit that, yes, he tapped out. But Angle did not beat him. In Wolfe's own words, beating somebody is punishing them, mentally and physically. This paved the way for the two of them to compete in a 3 degrees of pain, 3 stages of hell, match, or 2 out of 3 falls, where the first match would be decided by pinfall only. Second, by submission only. And if necessary, the third fall, they would have to escape from the cage.
I was going to say.
Therefore, all 3 falls would take place inside 6 sides of steel.
But what I really liked is they were not allowed to use the cage as a weapon for the first 2 falls.
I hated it.
I loved it.
No, I liked it. I liked it because.
Why did you hate it?
Because then it shouldn't be there. I understand that we're working under the arena's not big. You can't have it hanging from the ceiling and drop it down. I understand
it
that,
was the
and that
thing,
you would have to, and that's why you have to have the cage up because you're not going to build it up after the second fall. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it would take too long. It took like 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And they use that time well where they are building the cage because Tenay and Taz are breaking down the match and all that. And so they use that time really, really well. But for me personally, it just comes off as a little silly.
I agree.
Cage, it's just a personal taste. The cage is there. And in any other situation you would use it, and the match stipulation is 3 degrees of pain, but
you know it's going to be used.
But don't use the cage.
But see, I disagree because it adds another sort of level of complication for these two, and it forces them to keep their wrestling, to keep their action in the center of the ring.
Exactly.
And you can really tell by watching the first 2 falls of this match that was going through their minds. All of the action takes place in the center of the ring, which doesn't fucking happen. That never happens. But it happens here, and I think it makes for a really interesting match.
It does. I was going to say, you better have said it if necessary, because that's what they always built it.
Right.
So one thing I really, really did enjoy before we actually get into the breakdown was the few times that the action does break from the center of the ring. Like, oh, what's going to happen? Like, oh, it's a couple of times where Kurt, you think, okay, he's getting frustrated. What's he going to do? We'll talk about it in a moment. But, man, good shit.
Yeah, I love this concept for a steel cage match. It's always sort of strange to me to see a pinfall or a submission inside of a cage. But making it a 2 out of 3 falls match where escaping the cage is the third fall feels like a natural choice to me, which is like the exact opposite of how you feel about it.
It is. And we'll get to the last fall and my singular complaint about that one as well. And it's not, and let me be clear here, like my issue with the third fall is not a TNA 2009 Desmond Wolfe Kurt Angle problem. It's a wrestling overall thing that it bugs me a little bit. And I understand the idea of like keeping them in the ring, but it didn't strike me, especially in that second fall, as these are two guys that are trying to prove who's the better man. It didn't strike me as necessary. Like, I don't know, had the cage not been there, that they wouldn't have stayed and grappled in the middle of the ring anyway. And I understand that is obviously speculation, and very well could have not been the case if the cage was not there. It seemed like, for me personally, it just wasn't for me. Like,
That's fair.
If the cage is there, it would be like, hey, you can, like, we're doing an Elimination Chamber match, but you have to stay in the ring. Right. Well, okay.
I feel like they've actually done that before.
Well, they changed the rule where you have to get pinned on the inside. They changed that pretty quickly. And also, like, the floors have changed to the chamber. It's much dumbed down version.
The great. I had that attitude too until I thought about it. Like, oh no, the walls were just chains.
Yeah.
And the floor was just like steel grates.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, it's probably. I mean, it's much safer this way.
I am
obviously.
actually so happy that it's much safer now. But I feel like they wrestle in like it's not safer. Like it's more dangerous. We got to stay in the ring. I'm like, no, you made it safe. Fucking
go for
use it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what our listeners have to say about that. You know, what do you think about this match stipulation being 3 falls and not being able to touch the cage and all of that? I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, I love a 2 out of 3 falls match. 3 stages of hell is obviously very interesting to me.
The first fall will break your spirit. The second fall will break your body. Mm-hmm. The third fall, if necessary, I'll take your soul.
It's just a twist on 3 stages of hell a little bit, to where the first 2 falls aren't even really gimmicks. It's just like the way you get the win, the method of victory. Yeah, right. Absolutely. And I'm fine with that. Like, I'm totally fine with that. I think it's much better than a 3 stages of hell match where the first match is a singles match and then the second match is whatever. Because then that first match is like, well, okay, like we're just here for whatever reason. I don't hate the gimmick overall. I think it's a really good concept, and I think it's absolutely the best between these two.
Yeah.
It makes a ton of sense as a feud ender. That's my one nitpick.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a big deal of a nitpick, but my thing is, like, the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, well, yeah, that rule happened is because they didn't want to stop the match to build the cage, and they couldn't lower it because the building is only like a 10-foot ceiling.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly why. It's
when we're talking about it, we're like, man, that is kind of really noticeable now. We're talking about it.
Well, it's just because you have to, what they ended up having to do is, probably put every panel on,
one at a time.
One at a time.
That would have taken so
secure them.
long.
Yeah, and they handled it well, building it in between matches.
They did,
but it would be impossible. It would be a a bummer to do that in the middle of a contest.
Because you mentioned this. I remember there's an episode of Impact where, like, the main event, they did the Steel Asylum match, but because it's in the Impact Zone, it's there the entire night. And it's like, main event, Steel Asylum. Like,
and you know what? Now that we're talking about this, that's why they have a lockdown pay-per-view, right?
Yeah.
Where every match takes place inside of a steel cage because that's all they could do.
Exactly.
Right. It reminds me a little bit of like especially the most recent the War Games NXT pay-per-views, where they'll drop the War Games cage, but the whole night there'll be 2 rings.
Yeah.
But they act like that other ring doesn't exist.
Exactly.
which I feel like is a little silly, because like it's obviously there.
Yeah, so use it. Somebody use it.
There's a fall brawl. I think it's 94. Ric Flair wrestles Arn Anderson, and you can tell like he doesn't want to wrestle Arn because Arn's his best friend. They're practically brothers. So the first like minute, 2 or 3 minutes is Ric Flair like, I don't want to do this. So he keeps rolling out of the ring and then goes into the second ring and demands they go into the second ring. And Arn wins.
Love it.
Yeah.
So much of the matches leading up to this one have been about each man learning and feeling out each other. Wolfe came in with his research done. He knew what his target was going to be, obviously, surgically repaired neck. Angle didn't know anything about Wolfe before he got attacked by him. But now, 3 matches in, both men have regrouped, studied the tape, adjusted their strategies for this marathon of a match.
Well, and Taz makes a great point exactly about that in that pre-match moment. He says the fact that Wolfe and Angle have had several matches now is bad news for Wolfe, because Angle's had an opportunity now to learn about Desmond Wolfe.
Exactly right.
And I feel like that is reflected in the way Kurt wrestles this match.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
One thing I really initially was like, what the hell is this? And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. Like, I understand what they're doing now. The first watch, I'm like, this is fucking boring. They're just doing headlocks. And then I rewatched, I'm like, oh, no, they're doing a lot more than that. So what you're watching is, in my opinion, the best melding of the European style and the Japanese style.
Yeah.
And just how goddamn similar they are.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that. One of the main real differences is that the European, they do focus a lot more on headlocks and joint control.
Right.
That's why almost every single hold that Desmond does is either a neck or a shoulder hold. Everything he does. Go back and watch it.
He has a game plan.
He does.
He has a very clear game plan.
He keeps Kurt on the ground.
Yep.
Because he knows if I keep Kurt on the ground, he can't tie me up. He can't pin me if I have him on the ground. So that's why he just focuses on that neck. And, man, when he does, at one point, he does like a side headlock into a key lock and brings it down. And I'm like, I've never seen anybody like do like a hammerlock into a headlock key lock.
And it's so smooth. It's
and he does the takeover
Yep.
with that key lock and the headlock locked in.
in midair.
He's got Kurt on the mat, and I'm like,
it's
dude,
already locked in before he hits the ground.
You were completely schooling Kurt Angle.
Yeah, it's incredible.
On how to control a wrestling match.
There are 2 things that Desmond Wolfe does in this first fall that just show me how good he is, and like the thinking man's wrestler. Like when you talk about, he's not a sports entertainer. You know what I mean? Like He is a professional wrestler, and he is incredible at what he does. And the 2 things that stick out to me is, one of them is he's got a side headlock on Kurt Angle, but it's also like maybe a key lock. He's got some wrist control, and Angle goes to whip him off of him, and Wolfe like stops in his tracks, and without losing control of the wrist or the head, is able to like throw a quick little elbow to Angle. And it's the way of him reversing the Irish whip, and they do it twice because they do it twice, but it's almost like the commentary team doesn't catch it the first time, but they catch it the second time, and they were able to comment on it. The other thing that he does is Angle goes for a sunset flip. And I've never seen this before, but Wolfe's way of avoiding being flipped over on his back for the sunset flip is he just takes his right hand, because you have to Angle is underneath him. He's got his arms to the front of Wolfe's legs. Wolfe takes his right hand and just slaps Angle's left hand that's on his leg. And it's enough to
and Angle slides out.
Right, and Angle slides out. And it's just one of those that just makes so much sense.
How have we never seen someone do that before?
It just makes so much sense.
Because we weren't paying enough attention to Nigel.
It's incredible.
Yeah, really, really interesting stuff.
It's just smart wrestling.
It is. There's a couple of little detail pieces that I wanted to bring up. One is that it's December 20th, so there's Christmas ropes.
There are Christmas ropes.
They're red and green.
green.
They're red and green, just to image that for you. The other thing is, this is not my favorite gear of Kurt Angle. Just as a general thought.
Yeah, this is what I call the circus tent gear.
It is.
He broke out some weird singlets in TNA that just did not do him any favors.
It's not a great singlet.
He had one that was purple, and it wasn't actually purple. It was blue.
Yeah.
But it was such a dark shade of blue against black with a red trim that it just read as purple.
Yeah.
And it looked so bad.
Hey, listen, that's neither here nor there.
And this is now, thankfully,
I didn't mind. It didn't bother me at all.
Thankfully, this is after Kurt is man, why did I stop shaving my facial hair and head? This is purple singlet.
It was a different look.
Purple singlet
Very
was
different
the
look.
Kurt letting his hair or lack thereof grow out and just not shaving. So he came out a few nights on TV suit clad, because it's still main event Mafia Kurt, but he's unkempt, he looks disheveled, and he's just I'm the greatest wrestler of all time. Kurt, you really need to go home and get a good night's sleep and shower and shave. And then he just kind of shows a couple months later wearing more of this stuff, the red and black with the stars on it, where it's what flag is that? Because
so was that
was
that John Laurinaitis trying to do a Kurt Angle impression? That's what
John Laurinaitis would be I am an Olympic gold medalist with a broken freaking neck.
And we're in TNA, so it's real. It's damn real. Not as true. So. That's not even the one I planned either.
When Kurt Angle locks in that hammerlock,
there
is just nobody else in the business who does it better.
Yeah.
He puts all of his body weight behind it.
Yes, he does.
Forcing Wolfe down to the mat, making it that much more difficult to escape or counter. And Taz makes a point on commentary to mention how it forces Wolfe to make a mistake.
Yes.
So Wolfe, whenever he's caught in that hammerlock, you see him reach back a couple of times, and that's a trap. Essentially, if you reach back when you're in a hammerlock, you are giving your opponent an opportunity to put a chicken wing on you.
Yep.
And, Angle doesn't do it here, but what a great piece of commentary from a guy who knows a thing or two about submissions.
Oh, yeah.
Mr.
Tap Out.
Eventually, Desmond Wolfe does snapmare out of it.
Yes.
And he goes in to apply a wrist lock on Kurt Angle.
Oh, yeah. So he really does work that, like I said before, the headlocks, the wrist lock, the key lock, and when he combines the two, and I'm just sitting there going, this is next level, guys.
It's incredible. There's a buckle bomb from Angle that is just ouchies.
Yeah, and that was the first one. I was ooh, that's Kurt getting frustrated because he's going to powerbomb into the cage. No, does the buckle. I'm
right.
You just saved yourself the first fall.
Just saved it. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even thought of that.
And you could tell Kurt's getting frustrated because when's the last time we saw Kurt Angle do a fucking buckle bomb? That's not his game plan. His game plan is suplexes and ground submissions. And he is having to break out a buckle bomb? You can tell. Kurt is sweating.
Different kind of Kurt Angle.
And it's weird because Kurt's already beaten Desmond, but he's resorting to stuff like this because Desmond Wolfe is out wrestling.
That's exactly right. It reaches a point during the first fall where Kurt, after being caught in that wrist lock for a while, Angle changes his game plan. He hits 5 German suplexes to try and wear down Wolfe, but he underestimates Wolfe's conditioning, and he goes to the top rope. Wolfe catches him, nails him with a Tower of London, which is a top rope assisted cutter. And what is it doing? Again, damaging Kurt Angle's neck, going back to the game plan.
The first one, he lets go and Kurt just lands on his forehead.
And that's the thing is those sort of key locks, it's torquing the neck as well as the arm and
That's
shoulder
what I'm saying. That's
area.
why he have him in that
so
headlock and then locking the key lock in.
It's just really, really smart wrestling.
And we did get a beautiful belly button overhead. I always to mention that. I love Kurt Angle's suplexes.
Oh, it's the best.
Wolfe is able to follow that belly to belly, by the way. Wolfe recovers and hits a hammerlock DDT.
Yeah,
so when you talk about
flying hammerlock, like he locks it in, like they jump and he locks that shit in and does, and I'm like, how?
Yeah, so when you talk about, the focus not only on the hammer locks and the key locks and the wrist locks, but then on the neck, you combine both of those things for that hammerlock DDT. It was really, really incredible. But Angle able to kick out of that Tower of London that Landon mentioned. And this is the moment where Wolfe goes for the lariat for the second time.
Yes.
And for the second time he goes for it. He isn't able to hit it. Angle hits his Olympic slam, his Angle slam, but Wolfe is the one that kicks out.
Yes.
And then Angle tries, as he might.
Yes. I don't want to shock you, Landon, but Kurt Angle misses the moonsault.
Damn it!
I know. He
One
does.
of these days, ladies and gentlemen, one of these days.
But Wolfe, third time's a charm for the lariat, is able to hit it.
Oh.
And he doesn't go for the pin straight away. He puts Angle focusing on that neck.
He suplexes him onto the top rope for the Tower of London.
Yep, hits that Tower of London for a second time. And
Let me say that. He reverse suplexes him on the top
to
rope.
get him on the top rope. Yeah.
Tower of London. And it just, and he hits it. I'm like, that's it. That's the first fall.
What a way to set up a move.
Yeah, really, really cool. And Desmond Wolfe wins fall number 1.
And there is a very brief, and by brief, I mean like 10 seconds.
10 seconds? 2 seconds?
It's not long.
Like the amount of time it takes for the ring announcer to say, the winner of the first fall is Desmond Wolfe. Bell rings. Like, on the rest here, like, that was literally 7 seconds.
I mean, it immediately goes into it. Wolfe wraps Kurt's arms in essentially like a sideways rings of Saturn.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought this up because as soon as the second fall begins, Desmond Wolfe begins the joint manipulation of Kurt Angle. He rocks up the shoulders, he rocks up the wrist, and pulls back the fingers. That's a lot of pain right there. You cannot control the hold if you cannot use your fingers.
That would be Nigel McGuinness calling a Desmond Wolfe match.
Exactly. And that is what I planned.
Oh, that's so good. But it's a brutal looking submission to both of your guys' point. But Angle's able to reverse it into a figure 4. And let me just be very, very clear here. The second fall, if you don't remember, is just submissions. And they do not throw a strike the entire time.
Nope.
Right?
Not one.
It's insane.
There's not a punch. There's not an uppercut. There's nothing. There is just reversal after reversal after reversal here over the course of the next
and
10
there's
minutes.
some really good stuff. The arm scissor key lock. Kurt kips up. And he's like, and then so he gets trapped back down. It's a classic spot, but it's usually not in an arm scissor. It's usually just a normal key lock. But yeah, so he kips up, gets put back down. The second kip up, he goes for the Angle slam, but Desmond reverses it with an arm drag. And I'm like, okay, he's paying attention. Because that was not the typical reversal of the Angle slam. These they just get out and hit whatever. Not an arm drag.
The arm drag is such a beautiful way to escape the Angle slam. I mean, Desmond came to win in the second fall.
He really did.
Smelled blood in the water. He's got one win already. He's finding hold after hold after hold to trap the arms of Kurt Angle. But Angle, even though he's being caught in some stuff, I'm convinced he's never been in before.
I don't think he's been in before.
He finds an escape every single time, and to the point where he reverses an arm figure 4 into an ankle lock.
Yeah, the arm figure 4, the very, very rarely seen figure 4 arm lock. It's like, I think people forget that's an actual hold that you can actually use in amateur wrestling.
And Wolfe is able to counter the ankle lock into a Kimura with a far leg grapevine, which is just a thing of beauty.
That is a callback. I don't know if it's intentional, but when Kurt Angle almost has his arm broken by Daniel Puter, that's exactly how Puter almost broke it. Yep, he locked him in a Kimura.
That is fascinating.
This is just a submission wrestling masterclass.
Well, and Mike Tenay says this is a very MMA style fall, which I think is interesting, and he's not wrong. Wolfe continues to target that left arm of Kurt Angle. That continues to be the focus. But at one point, Angle has an ankle lock on Wolfe that Wolfe reverses into an ankle lock of his own.
I love that. And then Kurt locks in the Uchikatami. And I'm like, what is this? In a good way, obviously. Because how often do you see Kurt Angle break out the Uchikatami?
I mean, when Kurt gets his neck caught in the legs of Wolfe, this is whenever he starts fading, right? And instead of like, sort of finding a counter really quickly, he gets caught, he's stuck, and he doesn't have that smooth sort of transition right out of it. Angle, in desperation mode, rolls over and brute forces out of the submission and snaps on the ankle lock for the fourth or fifth time.
And then he just immediately grapevines and falls back.
Drop down into the grapevine.
And that's when you know.
And I like to think that's Kurt Angle going like, break this motherfucker, because you're not.
Wolfe has no chance to escape. Angle wins the second
But
fall.
you notice he doesn't hesitate. He locks it in, and Desmond taps up pretty quickly because he knows you have to break that hold.
Yep.
Smart.
It's smart. It's giving up this fall so that you have a chance at the third fall.
And I want to talk about the well-thought, well-executed quick tap. It's not he's such a sissy, he tapped out. I was like, no, I don't want to have my complete leg destroyed by Kurt Angle when I have to escape a fucking cage to win the next fall.
Right.
It's a smart way to get out of this.
Agreed. And now, strategy adjusts again.
Yeah. Now the cage is in play. Not only is it in play as a weapon, but you have to escape, right? Like, that's how you get out and win this third and final fall. Interestingly enough, as we're at the peak of suspense and drama in this match, they decide to cut away to Jason Williams for the second time. Jason Williams was a basketball player for the Orlando Magic. They showed him earlier, but the nameplate wasn't ready. So they went back to him this time. And this is when Taz brings up that, or Taz and Mike Tenay both bring up that there were 2 wrestling shows in Orlando that night, December 20th, and Jason Williams decided to go to this one and come to the Impact Zone. And Taz says, you would have never seen wrestling like this at that other show that other company's putting on.
And
he's correct.
Just for reference, that other company was having a Friday Night SmackDown and ECW taping in Orlando that night, and the main event of that show was D-Generation X defeating the Hart Dynasty.
And I'm looking at that match card. You can definitely tell it's a Tay Long because, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 5 matches are all tags.
Playa. What would have been so funny is if Taz was talking about like a indie, like a local promotion, and was just like totally burying him.
I don't think they would have done that though, because I felt like
no,
TNA, like they actually acknowledged that there were other wrestling companies out there. They didn't pretend it was just WWE. Mm-hmm. So I would always talk about when somebody came in. Oh, this is so and so from New Japan Pro Wrestling. This is so and so from AAA. This is so and so from CMLL. They would actually build up who they were, where they were from. Not here's Dan Smith from Florida. He's been wrestling for 3 years, and let's see what he's got. And they bring in Nigel McGuinness. They change his name, but they bring in Nigel McGuinness and immediately push him to a main event feud with Kurt Angle because you know who he is.
Yeah.
We don't have to rebuild him.
No, they had Kazuchika Okada for a while, and they talked about, he's on excursion, know, and he's doing, stuff from New Japan, and look at, how impressive he is.
And it is actually my biggest issue with how WWE handles people. I think the lone exception is AJ Styles. They brought him in as it's AJ Styles. You know who he is. They did make him kind of introduce himself, but it was like this is AJ Styles. He's
he won the title real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a year. But my point is, when he debuted, they didn't pretend that he was nobody from nowhere. Who is this man? They're like, oh, that's the hottest free agent in all of professional wrestling, AJ Styles, a 15-year veteran of the sport. Like they built up. This guy's been around since 2000. He's really good. You're gonna love what he can do.
Yeah, those are few and far between in WWE.
That's the only exception I can think of. Yeah. Where they brought him in, hotshot him. Yeah, he had a WrestleMania match against Shane fucking McMahon, but they still...
Which was fucking way better than it had any right to be.
Yes, because you had AJ Styles.
I know.
To make Shane look amazing. Anyway, enough about me complaining about how they bring talent in. The third fall.
It's almost like this match takes place in 3 acts.
Yeah.
And...
does.
There are like 3 different matches almost. Just the way that their strategy very visibly and noticeably shifts is impressive.
Oh, absolutely. So what I really enjoy about this is almost immediately, like, we got to escape this cage. And so they immediately start to try to escape the cage.
It speaks to the versatility of what these guys are able to do in there.
So one thing I really did enjoy was they basically both have the same idea. Let's climb on the second rope. the deadliest rope. Yes, it is Brett's rope. We get a Brett's rope superplex.
Brett's rope superplex.
And one thing I really enjoyed is whenever it looked like Wolfe was going to get out, Kurt smashes both of his knees and then hits a belly to belly overhead off the top rope.
Yeah.
And then, like, for the rest of the match, Nigel, damn it. Fuck it, he's Nigel. He tries to climb out. Remember, he tries to climb out at one point,
but
the knee gives out. And so then he can't use his leg. So he, like, drapes all of his weight on his good knee to pull himself up, and he still can't do it.
He can't do it.
And
I loved that.
after the belly to belly overhead, he calls for the official to open the door because he can't stand up anymore.
And playing into this even more, Angle goes to hit a frog splash on Desmond Wolfe.
Oh, and he gets the leg up.
But Wolfe throws his leg up to block the frog splash. And what happens here is Wolfe does not pay attention to which leg he throws up. It was just a split-second decision. Oh, shit, let me block this. He throws up the same leg that's been destroyed by Kurt Angle. And so he's writhing in pain after he realizes what he's done. But Kurt is writhing in pain because what he lands his leg on is Kurt's shoulder and neck that has been worked over the whole match as well. It's just an incredible moment that just after everything these guys have gone into, that it all comes down to this, and it's just they're both sort of worse for wear. Who could possibly take the advantage here?
And a moment I really, really enjoyed is Wolfe gets busted open after being thrown to that cage door. Oh, God, how many times? Kurt just starts open season on the forehead of Desmond Wolfe, and just the shot of a busted open Wolfe, can't stand anymore because his leg has been destroyed, crawling out of the ring. Kurt comes to pull him out, and Desmond pulls the door back and smashes Kurt's forehead into the. And I'm sitting there going like, they are really, really like building up right now. This is it. This is it. This is it. This is it. And man, I kind of was a little disappointed that Kurt just kind of climbs out after they had this moment where it's like, here we go. Kurt's going to just go out like, no, I'm going to smash your head with the door.
Well, before that, it's Wolfe is inches away from escaping out that door.
Yeah.
And Angle catches him.
Oh, you're right. He pulls him back in.
And puts in the ankle lock.
For a long time.
And that essentially clinches it, right? You have to imagine if Wolfe can't walk, how is he going to possibly escape the cage?
Yeah.
So, when the ankle is satisfied that Wolfe is out, he starts climbing.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, he's climbing out to be like, I can still stand, son of a bitch. I ain't crawling out the door.
It might be. I mean, I always thought crawling out the door was a bit of a cop-out in a cage match.
Well, this is my beef. This is the other thing I was referencing earlier. I understand that logically there is a door so that the competitors can get in, but I can't imagine it was ever intended that was the way they were also supposed to get out.
Well, here's the deal with the door for me. It's a strategic move to go out and over the cage rather than through the door. Because, yes, while it's easier to just walk out of a door, it's also easier for the opponent to stop you from walking out of a door because it's right there closer to where they are. If you're downed, it's closer to where you are. If you go to the opposite side of the ring and start climbing up, it's going to take longer for your opponent to get up off the floor and over to you. You could be already up and over.
I understand that you have to suspend disbelief either way here because logically that makes no sense to me because it would take me all of 1 second to open and walk out of the door versus the 30 it will take me to climb the cage myself.
You have to wait for the ref to unlock the door.
I understand that. But also in cage matches, so often the door is completely unlocked for the last 5 minutes as things happen. You know what I mean? It's not always that situation.
I personally hate the door. I wish that they would just not use the door at all. I understand the idea of a heel getting heat, but like open the door and I'm just going to walk or crawl out while the babyface is going to do his best to just climb out. I feel like Kurt climbing out and not calling for the door open is a power play. Because he has destroyed Desmond's leg. He knows he can't stop him, so he's going to climb out because he knows he can do it.
I don't feel that way at all. Only because, logically, it makes sense to me. Like, yes, I wish I could believe that, but instead, I know, and this is just the way my brain has seen it, is that he's climbing out so that we can have this moment where they're both almost out. because, you talk about, really working on Wolfe's leg and ankle. Well, now he can't climb out because he can't climb. Well, what the fuck does that matter? Because he can still crawl out of the door.
Yeah, but I don't think
for me it loses significance. Is the point I'm getting to.
I understand where you're coming from, but I think in Kurt Angle, like kayfabe wrestling mode, he's like, "There's no way the kid's even crawling out. I'm just going to climb out."
This is not me faulting TNA, Wolfe, Angle, or any of that. This is just my personal issue with the door itself in professional wrestling.
I have the issue with it too.
So because of that, it does take away from the drama of the moment for me, because it's not particularly interesting. Like Kurt Angle going over the top is great. And that's how he wins. He's able to climb up over and hit the floor before Desmond Wolfe climbs out of the door and falls onto the mat.
I think the only cage match I can think of where the whole call for the official to open the door and it works, 97 Survivor Series, SummerSlam, Triple H and Mankind in a cage. The whole point is they've been feuding all summer, and Triple H just wants to end the match quick. So as soon as a bell ring, he's trying to get out the door. And the entire match is him trying to get the door, and every time that Mankind tries to get the door, Chyna smashes his head with the door, or she throws a chair in, or she actually locks the door so he cannot get out that way. So he is forced to try to climb out. That's the only time I can think about it. So the door works, I think, if you've got an unfair advantage, or if you've got a manager or somebody out there making sure there's a reason why the hero's fine, I'll climb out then if I can't use the door.
Well, it's always a really interesting moment to me when people are trying to climb out, but do they want to climb out and go to whoever is on the outside waiting for them? That's happened. We've seen that over and over again. And so I hate to deduct from this match because of a flaw that has nothing to do with them and everything with professional wrestling in general.
Pro wrestling in general.
Because this is an incredible match from top to bottom, and it really is.
This match.
It just. It takes away from the intensity of the moment. And if Angle really mastered Wolfe and really crushed that ankle, it would matter more if Wolfe could not climb to catch him versus just trying to slime his way out of it.
I completely agree. If you take the door out of the equation, the match is significantly better.
Just a thought. Just a thought.
But I'm not going to sit here and
I
be
personally like the tension of who's going to get out first. But
I do too, but I feel like it's
not a very realistic scenario.
No, it's also a thing you see in every freaking cage match ever. And I'm not speaking literally because I know I've seen cage matches where there was no door, or you could not win that way, or you can only win by pinfall.
Oh yeah, most of the time nowadays it's pinfall or submission, which I think is fucking stupid.
Right? Yeah, no, I fully agree.
What's the point of being in the cage match?
Exactamundo.
Right.
Well, there's
you
reasons.
Use the cage as a weapon.
The original intention of
out.
a cage match was never to escape the cage.
No, it was to make sure that to either keep people from interfering or make sure that so-and-so didn't run away.
Well, and it was a spectacle. It was just like, oh, these guys are caged animals.
They're in a cage.
Exactly.
It was about the spectacle of the thing. It was never really about escaping the cage. But me personally, I've seen way too many cage matches for that to mean anything to me anymore. So the only thing that would be interesting is see someone try and escape it.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
So
that's different.
I actually have a cage match I want both of you to watch. It is X-Pac versus
Bull
Kane.
Nakano versus Aja Kong.
No, we already tried that. It wasn't. We didn't like it. Spoiler for everybody out there. No, it's X-Pac versus Kane. The stipulation is Kane can only win by escape. I'm sorry. Kane can only win by escaping. X-Pac can win by pinfall. So they flip it. Like, okay, you think it would be easier for Kane to win by pinfall. He can't. He has to climb out. And X-Pac can only win by pinning Kane. So they kind of invert it, and the whole thing is like, so X-Pac is not working to try to escape.
I've actually heard that X-Pac and Kane had some really good matches, and they worked really well together.
No, this cage match is Armageddon 99. It's really good.
Yeah, I've heard there are
good
matches.
I need to go back and watch that.
Yeah, it's a good one, and it's weird because you'd think the stipulation, why would they do that? I said, well, because it underplays both men's strengths.
Right.
Kane's the bigger guy, so of course it's going to be a lot harder for a 320-pound man to climb
up
that
and
cage.
over. Yeah.
It's going to be a lot harder for a 190-pound guy to pin a 320-pound man.
Interesting.
It's weird because it's the monster babyface versus the smarmy. It's weird, but it's a fun match. But it's one of those things where I think they thought of what you're talking about. Said, let's flip that. I can't win that way, and you have to win that way.
Well, and I don't want it to come like it makes it sound like when I talk about this that I hate professional wrestling, and I hate that it comes off that way, and I hope it doesn't. It's a little nitpicky, I'm aware, but I mean, here we are, we're 77 matches into the greatest of all time list.
You have to nitpick.
You have to nitpick to some extent, and you know, if I'm comparing this match versus another, and they're super super close, that could be what decides it between number 40 and 41 or whatever. I don't know. We haven't started talking about the ranking part yet.
I'll give you a perfect example of that when we talked about the Mind Games match. Oh my God, this is the best match ever, but it's got a DQ finish, and that did hurt its ranking.
Yeah.
And that's the only blemish on that, in my opinion, flawless match between those two. Two of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, that is a rough finish to something that we want to call one of the greatest matches of all time.
We did, but we had to acknowledge that finish left a sour taste in everybody's mouth. Mm-hmm. There's no reason. I don't think they were ready to have Mankind lose on pay-per-view because he had just beaten Taker, I think, twice. No, 3 times. He beat him at... No, I'm sorry, it's twice. He beat him at King of the Ring. No, that's 3. He beat him 3 straight times. He beat him at King of the Ring. He beat him at Buried Alive, and he beat him at SummerSlam. So he's coming off a 3 pay-per-view winning streak against The Undertaker. I see why they were not ready for him to lose to Shawn Michaels, and I also see why they were not ready for Shawn Michaels to lose the World Heavyweight title to... I get it, but they could have found a better way to do that, in my opinion.
77 matches in. What were your favorite moments of this one?
Oh, the fucking Desmond reverse suplexing Kurt under the top rope and in one fluid motion dropping the Tower of London.
That was amazing.
That was really cool. And I feel like you can only really do that with the cage. I don't think you can pull that off quite as easily without that back there to make sure that Kurt's in the right position.
I loved the counter wrestling. Every counter in this match is seamless. It's so smooth. The hammerlock work in this match is some of the best I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. It's a fun match.
Well, they work simple holds like they're having an actual amateur wrestling match. And I guarantee Kurt probably loved doing that stuff. He probably loved guys that could actually realistically keep up with him. And
that's why he had some of the greatest matches with Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels.
Because Shawn couldn't keep him with the mat game. That's why they wrestled the way they did. Although I say that their WrestleMania match, the whole thing,
they shoot. They
do.
In that match.
And I think some of the times Kurt is very quick to put it into it, and there's some times where it's like, oh, okay, so Shawn does know a few things.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Shawn did wrestle too, just not at an Olympic level. My favorite example of people mat wrestling with Kurt is like, oh my gosh, he has a series with Triple H where Triple H actually showcases some actual like legit mat work, and I'm like,
nice.
That's always weird because Triple H is this technical wizard. I'm like, yeah, when he's wrestling like Jericho or somebody like that who's not really a technical guy, is more of like a hybrid high flyer catch can guy. But watching him not go hold for hold because he probably couldn't, but like did stuff like this, or when Kurt Angle would wrestle guys like Rob Van Dam, who you forget can actually fucking wrestle.
Oh yeah, he can go.
One of my favorite matches is, and I don't think it's list-worthy, it's just a fun, guilty pleasure match, is Rob Van Dam versus Triple H, where Rob Van Dam works very similar to how Nigel works here, where he works headlocks and takedowns and keeps Triple H on the ground the whole time. And I'm like, we were not expecting to see this out of Rob Van Dam. I'm like, no.
I remember that match being like Rob Van Dam is like a heavy underdog, and he comes in and like it almost
he
like
out-wrestles Triple H the whole time.
It's almost the same story as the Shelton Benjamin Triple H match when Shelton goes to Raw and is just like I was this close, this close. It's kind of that same feel.
Well, Rob Van Dam actually beats Triple H for the world title. No, but I just like it because when you hear the name Rob Van Dam, you immediately think high flying. Just you think big spots off the top rope or big flashy stuff, and majority of that match is ground-based mat wrestling, and most of it is done by Rob Van Dam. So segueing into a match like this, where you hear the name Kurt Angle, you hear the name Nigel McGuinness, a.k.a. Desmond Wolfe, you know what these guys can do, and you expect them a certain type of match. And for them to basically, for 22 minutes? How long is this match?
It is exactly 26 minutes and 14 seconds.
Okay, 26. For the bulk of that, them to work dead center of the ring, doing counter chain grappling.
Yep.
And
that's impressive.
Mm-hmm. And they don't lose the crowd.
No.
I mean, a little bit in the very, very, very beginning, But once we get about halfway into that first fall, especially in that second fall,
It's good.
that crowd is like, this is wrestling. I'm like, yes, it is.
That's
What about you?
literally what they chant.
What about you, Spencer?
It's the whole second fall. I mean, from
yeah.
beginning to end. I really love it. It's one of those things that, kind of to what Paul was saying. You see that scattered throughout Kurt Angle's career. You see bits and pieces of this, but I don't know if you ever get 10 straight minutes of it with someone that's able to match him, move for move like Nigel McGuinness.
And I really put that up to
Desmond Wolfe.
I really put that up to him going through that very European style, which is that. That's what the European style is. It's actual, it's chain grappling. It's holds. You lock in a hold, you work the hold. You transition it onto other holds, or you try to get a pin or a submission off of this. And that, I think that's why when we do see that kind of wrestling, man, this is so awesome. It's because we don't watch it all the time. Mm-hmm. If we watch 10 matches in a row, we're going to get tired of it. But when you see it once at Blue Moon, you're like, man, that's a really good style.
Yeah.
And when you see it mixed with that Japanese style that Kurt was famous for, they work so well together, because I feel like they are they're the yin to each other's yang here.
I completely agree.
Really good. Really well said.
How in the hell do you rank it?
Well, you look at other matches like that.
God.
You know what match this makes me think of for a very drastically different reason? Because I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that Tiger Mask and the Dynamite Kid and Kurt Angle and Desmond Wolfe had a similar match, because they didn't. They had a very different match. But the idea of here comes these two very different styles, and they're mixing. But they're also
it's that Japanese
very, very
style
versus
the European style.
The only difference is that was a more high-flying, higher, fast-paced, higher. I'm not gonna say higher work rate, because these two work their asses off. It's a different kind of work rate. It is a slow. You know what it is? It's a Ring of Honor slow build to a big finish, and I feel like you just don't see that anymore. I think it's weird, because I said the exact same thing last week, where these guys take their time and they build up. And they do. They tell a 26-minute story, and they take every single second of that 26 minutes and build up to this ending. And it's weird, because you have to do it 3 times. You have to do it for 3 separate falls, and they do it so well. Both. I mean, maybe not. Well, we have our opinion on the finish, but just the way the first fall ends and the way the entire second fall goes, I'm captivated. And I'm going to be honest, I had never seen this match before.
Yeah.
I had seen the Impact match, and I'd seen the Turning Point match.
Right.
I'd never seen this one, and I'm so happy that I got to watch this one. So this is me saying thank you to everybody that recommended this one, because holy shit, this is going on my personal rewatch list.
For sure.
Which, I mean, there's maybe 12 matches on our 76, 77. Oh my gosh, what number are we on?
Well, and as a matter of fact, there's one man who has been pining for us to do this match for months, maybe even a year at this point, and finally won the poll, or got really close to winning the poll enough to where we had to go ahead and do it. And that's our good friend Joey. Joey's just been a really, really great supporter of the show for a long time, and he actually sent in an audio clip to help us rank this one.
Fantastic.
So let's go ahead and start with the help this time and figure out where this thing's going to go.
To sell this match in one sentence, it's the blow-off to a blood feud between two of the greatest mat technicians to ever do it, and by God, does it deliver. Wall-to-wall grappling kicks us off and slowly ramps up in intensity. Both men sell expertly, making every move and every hold look excruciating even to the untrained eye. Taz and Mike Tenay bust their asses on commentary to put over the action as well, and the crowd remains loud and engaged for every second, adding an extra layer of excitement throughout. I'm not going to go through every amazing spot, but Kurt dragging Wolfe through the door with the ankle lock and making him pass out in a pool of his own blood was an absolutely incredible visual and made for outstanding suspense as Wolfe shakes awake and tries to race Kurt through the cage door, but is ultimately unsuccessful. Learning a hard lesson in the process: do not fuck with Kurt Angle. Ranking this is going to be hard, and I don't envy you boys, but for me this match perfectly balances being both a blood feud and a mat classic, and fittingly, I feel fits neatly in between the number 20 spot between Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard and Tiger Mask versus Dynamite Kid. Thanks for giving me the chance to talk about TNA, guys. I'll chat with you next time.
Wow.
Okay. I just want to say, before we listen to that, what match was I invoking?
That was the one.
And the thing, we hadn't listened to that. We wanted our reactions to be natural to that. Man, incredible. That's really, really crazy. Also, listen, we a big shout out to Joey because we were like, hey, we like these clips to be about 60 seconds if that's okay.
It was
and listen,
59 seconds.
He was like an auctioneer. He was rattling through it. He had things to say, but he was absolutely incredible analysis.
So what
really
I think
well
is
done.
interesting is not far below that one is the Kurt Samoa Joe match, which he also gave us a very good recommendation for. And that one,
a resident TNA expert.
yeah. What was weird is because I would have put more stock in that match, but
Well, there is more stake in that.
This
match,
was
too.
these guys are tougher than a $2 steak. I tell you what.
all steak, no sizzle, baby. Samoa Joe is all man and a yard wide. So I would have put more stock into that one because it's Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe. But I do kind of go, that's the beginning of a feud. This is the end of a feud. So I know we're not supposed to compare matches to themselves anymore, but I would actually go above Kurt and Samoa Joe for this one. This one does something that I feel like the end of a feud should really do, which is give you a decisive winner. But you don't see the decisive winner until the very, very end of the match. So I look at what's above that. We have the Joshi tag, Kong and Nakano versus Kandori and Hokuto. Love that match. I'm not sure if I want to go above that one, though. But that one has a couple of nitpicks as well. This one has that one glaring nitpick at the very, 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 very end of it. That one has a few nitpicks. Mainly that I thought it was a little too long. I thought if they cut out about 5 minutes out of that match, and it's quicker, I think it's the perfect tag match of all time. I have a difficult time going above it, but right above it is the Takeover Respect match, which is just, come on, it's weird. And then you go right above that one is the X Division Elimination 4-way match. And then that's when you get into Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA.
Yeah.
So
a lot of good stuff.
And they're
up
all
there in the upper 20s.
Very different matches.
Yeah, extremely different.
That's when you get into the pulling hairs.
Mm-hmm.
Pulling hairs for Belly and Sasha, I really can't. That match, as I recall, we throw the word flawless around a lot. I don't know if that one's flawless.
It is. Oh,
but,
man. It's a game changer.
It really, really is. And it's one of those, man, we should really be taking women's wrestling more seriously. And I feel like that was one of those. If you're not, watch this, and you will be. And I feel like even though it took a little bit longer than it should have, they were able to do stuff like that in the main roster. I feel like Bayley was never allowed to do that, but Sasha was. But when you talk about that X Division match, it's the complete opposite of what this one is. So comparing them, I can't do it. But I can compare Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard because those two legitimately, in real life, hated each other. Mm-hmm. And you know what I felt? I felt like Desmond Wolfe wanted to end Kurt Angle's career. For real. Like, not, this is a pro wrestling story and I'm in a feud. No, I want to kill Kurt Angle because he's old, I'm young, and I'm the future. That's what I get from him because he does such a good job at selling you that he is that character. He does such a good job of selling that he wants to break Kurt Angle's neck and end his career. Mm-hmm. So I get that kind of heat. I get that vibe. Oh, do I want to go at number 20 or not? It's so difficult. Like I feel like I can go anywhere between 20 and 24.
2024?
And anywhere in there. I feel like it can go in any of those spots.
24 being the Kong Nakano and Kandori Hokuto Wrestling Queendom 2 tag team match.
I felt like it could be anywhere in those slots.
Gotcha.
And there's an argument for why it should be right there, maybe a little bit lower, maybe a little bit higher, but it's so difficult.
So I'm sort of floating a little bit lower.
That's fine.
I get the comparison with Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid, and I 1,000% agree. I think there's a little bit of a legacy issue you run into with the TA and Tully Blanchard from Starrcade '85.
Understand?
If we're looking at NWA TNA 2002, you're building the X Division. Yeah. Bayley Sasha, untouchable. It's just talk about legendary matchups. I'm looking more so below. I don't know if this one goes over Angle Joe for me.
Okay.
I'm looking more so in the maybe like the 30 sort of range. Right now, 30 is Trish Stratus versus Lita, and what a standard bearer for 30. Talk about a game changer for women's wrestling and for the professional wrestling as a whole. Was the first ever or the second ever main event of Raw with women. I think, and I even think Goldberg versus DDP was a tighter match. I wouldn't necessarily call it a better match.
It's much tighter, but it's also 11 minutes.
Right.
This was 26.
And so I would be right here. Maybe my floor would be 31.
Okay.
And my ceiling, if I would go up, might be somewhere around like 26. Right?
Okay.
That's our Eddie Guerrero sort of area with the Eddie Guerrero Art Bar and El Hijo del Santo and Octagon from AAA at 27, and Eddie Guerrero Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania 21 being at 26. I think those are excellent matches. But could this match edge out over that? I could be talked into it.
Yeah.
Spenser.
Hello. How's it going?
Doing well.
It's going quite well. Are you about to humble us?
Well, I have been over here. I've just been going through, I've had time now to go through every number of our list basically.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking, in what way will I break you mentally and physically as I do this? Because I'm not as high as either one of you on this match, and I feel like the Grinch, basically, because I do love this match, and that's what's so fucking hard about this.
I know.
Is that
it's difficult.
There are 77 matches, and the reality is that we love all 77 of these matches.
We do.
We do.
For very
we would
different
watch
reasons.
all of them again for very different reasons. But inevitably, when you start to pull things apart and have to separate them, you have to look at some of the negative of these things, just to try to find some differences between the two, whether it's you didn't connect to it for whatever reason, the characters, the legacy, the stage, the story, what have you. So for me, I like the highest, the floor that we've talked about is Landon's 31, and that's higher than my ceiling. I think the highest personally that I go would be 37, which would be right under.
Ooh, Flair and Shawn.
Right above Flair and Shawn from WrestleMania 24. And then I think my floor is probably 50. 49. I think I would say I would put it underneath. I could see myself putting it underneath Liger and Muta, but above Edge and Foley at 49.
Yeah, if I'm looking in that range, if I move away from the range I gave and work within the range that you gave, I can see this going over Edge and Foley pretty easily.
I could too.
There's there's the legacy argument again with Muta and Liger.
Right.
That's an incredible matchup.
That's a horror movie. This is
I think
they
this
offer
one,
two very different things.
Yeah, very, very different. I think this one is. I might rewatch this match before I rewatch that match.
Yeah,
just from that incredible second fall that we talked about.
Right.
But you're right. I might get caught up at Cactus Jack versus Triple H at Royal Rumble 2000. That one has a lot of people saying that should be higher on our list than it is right now. Mm-hmm. DIY Revival. There is some stuff that match will be remembered for that this match
finish
will not be remembered for. You know what I mean? An incredible finish. Two excellent tag teams proving that tag team wrestling is not dead.
Yes.
Randy Orton, Mick Foley, if we're going up from there, absolutely legendary match. So, if I had to work within your range, I would be comfortable with maybe a 48.
48?
Yeah, well, I mean, this was my personal range, and the reality is that as a group between the three of us, our range was somewhere between 20 and 48. So I am not the end all be all in terms of where I wanted. I'm 1/3 here, so I just gave my range. I was willing to. As hearing the two of you talk, I was expecting to bend forward on that because you guys were considerably higher than I was.
I hear you, but this is a flaw in mine when it comes to ranking matches. I will make a comparison to something else, and I will focus solely on that and forget that there are 76 other matches to compare it to.
Difficult. Yeah, it's difficult to do. So being able to sort of hear your defense of your range makes sense, and it forces
And
us to look at other matches
Yeah.
that we may have overlooked on the list.
And not only that, he does a better job than I do of actually going through the entire thing and going, yes, no, yes,
Well,
maybe.
and removing, I think Spenser does the best job out of all of us of checking recency bias and sort of picking apart, like you said, these matches and finding the differences.
Well, I think it's. I'm sorry, Paul. I didn't mean to.
No, you're good. Go.
It is really
I've talked
interesting,
enough.
and I think one thing that makes me a little bit different in this perspective is I don't have the 2009 TNA love connection that necessarily
don't.
that you because I didn't know anything about TNA at this time in my life. I wasn't really watching wrestling at this time in my life.
Very entrenched in TNA at the time because this was peak guest host of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, just not really doing anything. Except for the odd, there'd be a really good match on pay-per-view, and then you get like maybe the big four would be fun, but like for the most part, they were trailing pretty bad at this point. They were resting on their laurels, and Impact was not. Impact wanted so desperately to be the better show, and you could really tell by how much work the wrestlers were putting into their matches. Like, man, we really need to be. We got to be match of the night because if we're match of the night, people will talk about it, and they talk about it, we'll get more people to watch the show.
And listen, Joey sounded very much in agreement with the two of you, and I can't argue with that. But I know that Joey very much loved TNA 2000, mid to late 2000s.
Yeah, this is our era.
And I get it. It was really good. Like if I was watching wrestling and I saw TNA 2000, I'm here. Like I'm here for it. I totally understand. I think for me, ultimately, what pulls me back down the list a little bit is that, like you said, Landon, this match is in 3 parts. Part 1 is above average. Part 2, stellar, like some of the best stuff I've ever seen. Part 3, very average to me. Now, you get that incredible image of Wolfe laying in his own blood as he's trying to, as Angle has left him there to go climb and escape the cage.
Right.
But then he snaps out of it very quickly to start swimming over towards the door.
I feel like
how many
if he
other
didn't do
incredible images do we get? DIY Revival, the final sort of picturesque image of that match
Of
is
FTR,
ingrained in our
like
brain.
literally holding hands so they won't tap out.
Edge and Mick Foley, the finish of that match. Look at that image.
This list is full of these highlight reel moments, these iconic images that will live on in wrestling forever. And this Wolfe one is absolutely part of that. It's what I'm going to remember from this match more than anything else, probably, other than the submission, fall that I think so highly of. So because of that, how do you average that out? Above average, excellent, dumbfounded, almost how incredible it is.
Oh, yeah.
And then a cage escape. The last fall to me is not a fall as much as it is, setting up this finish.
Right.
Yeah. I almost feel like if Desmond just he stayed passed out, I think it would have been a more powerful ending.
Sure.
It's like, look at that. He left Kurt Angle in a heap so many times, and there he is, unconscious in his own blood, and Kurt Angle climbs over the top just to prove that he is the better wrestler.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. Now, I also understand that you don't want Desmond Wolfe to look, especially as this guy that you're trying to build as he's new to your company, newish. You don't want to leave him in a pool of his own blood to never recover, so I can understand.
They kind of had to do what they did.
I get it. I understand that. And it's, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. How do you, and that's what it is that how do you make both guys look strong with that stipulation?
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree, but it does come down to, in the general audience's eye, if he's left in the pool of his own blood while Kurt climbs to the top, he does look weak. But I also feel like
he's Kurt fucking Angle.
Yeah. Also, yes,
Right.
you lost to Kurt Angle, arguably the greatest of all time. But at the same time, I'm like, yes, that would make him look weak, but you've got 5 weeks of TV to build this guy back up as a threat.
And did you see the first 2 falls, by the way?
Yeah, where he completely out-wrestled Kurt Angle?
He dominated that first fall.
He did.
And then the second fall, he may have tapped, but he was going with Kurt Angle, holding his own the entire time. Mm-hmm. So, it almost felt like, regardless of if he would have been left in a pool of his own blood, I would have walked away very impressed with Desmond
Agreed.
Wolfe.
We watched Desmond Wolfe out-wrestle Kurt Angle for 20 out of 26 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's great. And listening to him on commentary when he does commentary is so special because of that insight that he brings, because he's such a good wrestler.
Oh yeah,
which is so much fun.
But how does that translate to where in the world on this list this match could go.
Yeah. What I do want to be very clear about is you guys listening, definitely let us know where you think this would have gone, when we settle on a number here in just a second. Will it be too high? Will it be too low? Do you agree closer to Joey? Are we crazy? Give yourself, like we said, you can watch this on Daily Motion, Impact Plus. Do yourself a favor and go watch this if you haven't already. Final Resolution 2009, good show from top to bottom. But this match is really, really spectacular. When we were talking about the numbers, we sort of left off at Cactus Jack Triple H at 47. I think that's a match that, like you said, people think is probably criminally underrated in our list, because that's a match that a lot of people think is top 25 of all time.
That was the match that took me from being a kid that liked wrestling and was like, no, this is the be all end all for me.
Right.
That's the match that made me go from a casual fan to a hardcore fan, and made me have an undying hatred for Triple H.
I have a feeling that at the end of this list, it's going to end up being the gatekeeper for our top 50.
Yeah, it feels that way. It absolutely feels that way. So let's take that match, if we're going to consider it potentially a standard bearer. Does this match, Wolfe Angle, better? Is it a better match than the street fight?
I think I would go just below it. There's something about it's weird, because when you talk about that street fight, it is, everyone always says it's Triple H's coming out party, and I agree it is. It is the match that takes him from being a weasel that finds a way to cheat to win into, no, this guy will do whatever it takes to win. And even though he wins that match, he's out in a stretcher. But he's no longer the sniveling heel, and from that point on, he is, he's the game. He is.
There's a lot going on there, and I feel like there's a lot of smaller story elements at play in that match. It's Cactus Jack's swan song, essentially.
It really is. Yeah.
And so it's really difficult to go over it.
And it goes back to that legacy question, right? This is a match. Cactus Jack and Triple H that, those guys look back on. And if you ask any, wrestling fans, what are three of Triple H's best matches in his career?
I feel like that's going to...
90 out of 100 people are going to say the street fight. If you ask people what is Mick Foley's, greatest match, 99 out of 100 are going to say that this is in the top 3 of that list as well. If you ask people Kurt Angle's greatest match or Nigel McGuinness's greatest match, where does this land?
I don't know if somebody asked Kurt top 3 opponents, he might not even say Nigel, but I think if you brought this particular feud, especially this match, he'd probably go, you know what, we did something really special there.
But do we feel like it has gone over what was accomplished by Jushin Thunder Liger and the Great Muta?
Only because I feel like those two were more focused on having like a gimmick horror, like trying to merge with a match than they were like wrestling, where this is just a pure wrestling
match. It's a legendary match for the reasons Paul just stated. I would rewatch this submission classic before that.
I would too,
personally.
And I'm not knocking Liger or Muta, because that fucking match is a horror film,
and also a standard bearer on our list.
Yeah.
Because of just the like we've talked about over and over again, we've beaten a dead horse here. The legacy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, does this match kind of reach that? But
that match is the debut of Kishin Liger.
It's huge.
Who had only appeared 3 times after this.
It's incredible.
And the Red Mist.
The Red Mist from Muta.
And if you don't get the Red Mist, you don't get the Black Mist.
Yeah, I wish, man, I wish that this Wolfe Angle match was a submission match. Period. The end.
Yeah, part of me is like, can you imagine?
And if that's the, I do enjoy the first fall a lot. But I just, give them 15 to 20 minutes of just a submission match.
I was actually kind of thinking about that watching that second fall, especially when I rewatched it. I'm like,
And that has we talk about that number 20 spot and higher. That has real potential in that case. But you're talking about Liger and Muta. I think this match, the match itself, has more to offer, and so I think I would go above that, and I think it might be the middle and we'll sandwich them, right? We'll have Triple H and Cactus Jack keep its spot at 47. Liger and Muto will bump down to 49, and Wolfe and Angle will be 48.
48. And I'm really interested to see what people are going to say about that ranking. It could be way too high. It could be way too low. Obviously, Joey thinks that's going to be criminally too low.
If you agree with us, you can send your thanks to @LastMatchCast or @Spenser Hunt on Twitter. If you disagree, send it to @Paul Altazan.
Or at Joey Paragon.
Joey Paragon. That was really hard. And I would argue
more difficult.
I would argue one of our tougher rankings yet.
Yeah.
77 episodes.
Really was.
77 episodes.
77.
That was my brother's number in high school.
How about that?
Yeah.
76 and 77?
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. That was really hard. But
That's what she said.
Was it, though?
That was worth doing. An incredible match. Do yourself a favor and watch it if you haven't. Do let us know your feedback via email, Facebook, Twitter, whichever way you'd like to do that. And we have 3 matches to go in season number 4. Season finale. Any spoilers we want to add? Anything like that? You want to hold off? We've talked about this before. We gave them a little something a couple episodes ago on 75.
Gosh.
I don't know. I think for a match like that, you have to go to New York.
Yeah. It's definitely the only place a match like this could happen in is in New York City.
We've got 2 to go before then, so we will see you for episode 78. I'm Spenser.
I'm Paul.
I'm Landon.
And this is Last Match Standing.